Hello and welcome on into episode number 28 of Objectively Biased. I am thrilled to be here today alongside River Brown as we're going to take a deep dive into the NBA draft of 2025. It's going to be a hot one, as you can tell here with me wearing a tank top, but I could not be more excited to talk about not only some of these upcoming prospects, some sleepers, but even some of these big recent trades that we've had. We've had four thus far after the Desmond Bain trade. And Riv, how are you feeling gearing up in the draft day?
I'm excited. NBA season is never over. I love it. You go right from the NBA finals to immediately the NBA draft. And then after that is free agency. We've seen some trades happen already.
Mhm.
With the recent Halliburton news, Jason Tatum news, teams are gearing up. Like, all right, this could be a year that, we can come out the East. We've seen already the Atlanta Hawks make a move. We've seen Orlando make a move. So I'm interested to see teams like Detroit, although I've seen a lot of reports of what they're trying to do. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But for the draft, man, like you mentioned, I have another plethora of prospects that I do love because I watch these guys so much.
Mhm.
But I'm excited about this draft. At the end, we're going to summer league, so we're gonna
Yes.
get to see these guys up close and personal pretty early. So I'm pretty excited about this.
Absolutely. James is not here with us today, but he will be coming back in our next episode. Has had a very busy last couple of weeks, and luckily the three of us will be in summer league. So potentially we could do a show along with our show at Pick a Side, and that'd be an absolute blast. But I think to warm up a little bit, we should and we have to talk about some of these big trades. Like you mentioned, the Celtics have been offloading a lot of their salary, and they got under the second apron yesterday after moving Porzingis in a three-team deal. And the Nets got a fifth first round pick. Three of them are in the 20s. The fourth time team. The fifth is number 8. Do you think the Nets are more likely to use 3 or 4 of those picks, or are they gearing up to trade up for a player or a higher draft pick?
I think first of all, I want to give a credit to Sean Marks, how
Mhm.
he's just been able to jump into deals and
Yeah.
like there was no reason how he was able to get a first round pick by giving up nothing.
Yeah.
I thought that was magnificent. Like you mentioned, just speaking on Brooklyn right now, 5 first round picks hasn't really been heard of. I highly doubt they use all those first round picks. They've been linked to Ace Bailey. Ace Bailey has come out and allegedly it's the Nets, it's the Wizards, it's the Pelicans. Those are
Mhm.
3 teams he's eyeing. He has not worked out for I think he had one secret workout per reports, but he hasn't worked out for anybody. At first, we got rumblings of him going to Philly. Like that was the pick.
Yeah.
Philly, him at 3. Then he didn't work out for Philly. He canceled that one workout. You saw Paul George come out and talk about how he's kind of, creating this image or he's kind of, forcing himself to fall down in the draft. But hey, if you're a player like Ace Bailey, who I think is very his career is going to be extremely predicated on where he goes and he needs extreme development. I think he's not a just anywhere can go and he'll be the guy he needs to be. I think he understands that. I think his camp understands that. And I think look at the 3 teams that he's, linked to. You got the Nets. They have Jordy Fernandez. So I think we all can admit is a magnificent coach. They have a plethora of draft capital. They don't have a ton of young talent. I think Ace Bailey would be probably their first blue chip talent because if I'm not mistaken, they haven't drafted in the top 10 in an extremely long time. Um, but getting Ace Bailey would be dope. You look at the Wizards, a team who we're going to talk about who traded Jordan Poole, kind of, gave some opportunity in the guard spot. I think they're going to go more Fears or Caspers, however you want to shake out. I think they're going to go guard, though, because you got Bub at the 2, Bilal at the 3, Corey Kispert is still there. So it's really Nets and Pelicans. And I look at the Pelicans and I think Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, now DeJounte Murray is going to come back. They have
Mhm.
Jordan Poole. There's not really much room for Ace to, come in there and play. So I'm looking at the Nets as a team that will be utilizing 2 or 3 of those picks, potentially can keep number 8 if they send all 4.
Yeah.
But I highly doubt it because I do think teams like Charlotte, teams like the Pelicans that are in front of them, teams like Philly, I think they want to stay in that top 10.
Agreed. There were a lot of reports too that Ace didn't want to go to Charlotte. I can't blame him on that at all. And much like you said, it feels a little bit like Michael Porter Jr., who he's similar to as a prospect for his strengths, some things he can improve. And the fact that he needs to buy into a role in the NBA to really thrive. Because to me, I understand that Ace Bailey wants to be the type of player with the freedom to become a star player. I look at his skill set and how raw he is, and I think at least early on in the NBA, he would benefit more from playing a complementary role. The other thing that I really want to highlight with that Nets uh, transactions, a series of them real quick before we dive into the mock draft, is that there have been a lot of teams that are rumored to be in the talks of trying to gauge the Celtics' interest in maybe moving Jaylen Brown. And if I'm Boston, I would look at Jaylen Brown as a near untouchable player. You would have to give me an offer to be too good to pass up because I know if I'm trading Jaylen Brown, I'm getting young assets. And now that's going to make us and put us even further away from contending when Jason Tatum's back 2 years from now. So I think the Nets, what they're trying to do is package Cam Johnson, the 8th overall pick, and then 1 or 2 more firsts to jump up into the top 3. But I think at the same time, they're calling Boston's line saying, what can we give to get Jaylen Brown our team? Because I think they are looking to, with all that cap space, star hunt a little bit earlier than we expected. But with that being said, is there any other trades you would like to talk about before we dive in?
Yeah. I would like to say to that point, I think that's interesting. I saw this tweet from Josh Eberly, big Twitter account. He
Mhm.
said it was Charlotte's 4th pick, Brandon Miller, and I think one more pick for Jaylen Brown. Would you do it? And if I'm Boston, I pick up that phone. I think about it. I'm like, all right, 4th pick, Brandon Miller. I'm not going to completely say no. I'm definitely sitting there like, all right, this is one I can sit here and I can think about. If you're San Antonio, if you just shoot him the 2nd pick, maybe one more, and like a Devin Vassell, you're Boston, you're definitely like, all right, I'll think about it. Like you mentioned, he should be near untouchable because you do want to keep Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum together for some
Mhm.
time. Um, I want to highlight just the Portland deal, the Portland and Boston deal, because I saw a lot of flack for it. And
Yeah.
I feel like people have this notion where a trade happens and their mind is instantly made up. And I get it, you can react instantly, but like people just think, oh, lost the trade, won the trade. No, I think I've thought about it. I looked at it, and first of all, shout out to Brad Stevens for able to get Anthony Simons and a couple 2nd-round picks. I thought
Yeah.
that was interesting. Um, they're able to get in the 2nd apron. But for Portland side, the team that I've been monitoring this year, and I thought I really like what they have over there. I think Drew Holiday getting him is great. I think it's an awesome move because I think you saw a nice trend upward from Scoot Henderson last year. And I think with Anthony Simons, I think the time was just up for him. He's 25, 26 years old. Contract is up. With Drew Holiday, he kind of brings in that veteranship, that leadership that you kind of want to implement into Scoot and the other guys. And I want to say post January, or definitely after the All-Star break, this was a top 10 defense in basketball. So you bring in Drew Holiday, who I think can still give you high level defense, into this young core. You want to start to build up some winning habits. You want to start to, be more competitive. I do like this deal for them because I think Drew Holiday can up his trade value, even if they want to move him at the deadline this year. Or I think he's extremely important for what they want to build. So I like the deal for Portland on this side. I think Drew Holiday is still a really good player. I think it works better for their young core to kind of let them, be great. Shaden Sharp, Scoot Henderson, Tumani Kamara, and stuff like that. And Drew Holiday kind of fits what they want to do. He fits, that type of veteran leader presence in the locker room.
It's tricky because I dropped the hammer on the Blazers. I made a
You did.
video and I had a strong reaction viscerally because to me, there's something to moving on from Anthony Simons to clear up room for Shaden and more notably Scoot Henderson to develop. My flack is that one, if they were eventually going to trade Simons, why would you wait until his deal is expiring and any value that he had would have soon evaporated? In Portland side, they had one suitor, it seemed like, for Anthony Simons. And the moment they acquired Desmond Bain, it became unlikely financially they can make that work. The other reason why I'm very critical of them is in the NBA, if you do a team a favor in trade negotiations, you should be aware of that and kind of leverage that to your advantage. And I felt like Portland in this scenario could have gotten value in return for taking on a contract in Drew where he was hurt in the playoffs. But when he was healthy this year, we saw him take a step back and paying him 32, 33, and 37 million the next 3 years when he just turned 35. To me, it feels like pairing that alongside Jeremy Grant's salary, it cements them into, I don't want to say NBA purgatory entirely, but it
Mm.
cements them right into the middle where in this Western Conference, I think if you're further along in your development, because I like the young players that they have, don't get me wrong, defense will be even better with Drew. I think he can fit in some ways, especially defensively, but if they were ready to win now, I'd be like, okay, I get it. The fact that you're buying Drew right as his value starting to fall off, and your team's still a couple of years away, to me, it felt like a very bizarre move. None of us expected the Blazers to get Drew Holiday at all. But I think kind of pairing alongside with that, I thought before this move they were the 11th, the 10th best team in the West. Now I think they're the 9th to 10th. And I just feel like it doesn't make much of a difference. So that's why I'm critical of them. But I would say at the end of the day, you add in a good leader, a good locker room presence. I don't think it's going to be a dreadful move. I just think he kind of handicaps them from a financial element. And the Celtics, man, how about them? How about them turning plus value into a contract that realistically they should have been the ones going to value for?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I agree. I definitely think they milked Anthony Simon's value for too long. And you mentioned it when a team makes a mistake, and I feel like Portland kind of understood, like, all right, like we kind of fumbled the Anthony Simon's bag a little bit. And I do agree with you. I do think having that Jeremy Grant contract is nuts. Also, the DeAndre Ayton contract, which it will eventually be cleared up.
Yeah.
But you mentioned it. Ayton's contract is going to be up soon. Drew Holiday could retire in like a year or two. So that money could come back to them. It's really just the Jeremy Grant contract. And yes, their players aren't in a sense of where, who can I use? Let's use Houston for an example. Houston, for example, where you don't bring in a Fred, you don't bring in a Dylan and they make that jump. But I think Portland looked at the way they ended last year and they were like, all right, let's make a slight move. Because like you mentioned, Drew, we didn't know Portland was in the running to get Drew Holiday at all.
Yeah.
But
Well, there wasn't much for running to me.
there's definitely we had somebody tell us there was zero value. I disagreed with that part. There was some semblance of value with Drew Holiday, clearly. And plus Brad Stevens is a guy for sure. But I think Portland looked at it and were like, all right, we played really well to end the year last year. Why can't we make that Houston jump prior to the year before? Just looking at it from their mindset. Houston was a team also who played really well to end the year. Portland, I feel like, did the same thing in a West that's extremely competitive. I feel like teams who play hard get rewarded the most. I think Portland is going to be one of those teams.
That's a valid point. My issue also is real quick. I know we're going on here in a whole
Oh, we're
spiel
good. We're
on
good.
this
We're
trade.
talking, man.
The Blazers just had a official sale, and that when you have ownership changes and the potential of new ownership coming in, very rarely do you see a team just immediately say, "Oh, you know what? We're going to just tear it all down." When you're
Yep.
trying to and actively considering selling the team, you're usually going to try to win now and try to be aggressive. And I think that leads teams to thinking they're better than they actually are. And they convince themselves, all right, we can compete and we can kind of exceed the public image of us. If they're in the East, I would agree with that. It's just when you look at the state of this West, I think Portland is kind of a little bit Chicago-esque in the sense that they think they're further along than what they are, at least in the grand hierarchy and the landscape of the league. But even still, I don't think it's a doom and gloom situation. This trade's not
Yeah.
going to set back the
I
rebuild.
don't hate that opinion. I don't. I do think they probably do think they're better than what they are. I think teams that young kind of get that vibe anyways.
Mhm.
One more thing. Atlanta. KP fits. If he's healthy, he fits. If he's, I'm shocked that Boston gave him up for nothing, which gives me the worry that his injuries over this past year was the random sickness and stuff like that kind of turned him off. Also, like him playing bad in the playoffs was a direct correlation to him just not being healthy or not
Yeah.
being, it was he had a weird illness that they just couldn't figure out what it was.
Yeah.
So I think that's why Boston was like, we just can't trust him. Atlanta, if you get him healthy, I think he's a big upgrade. I think he fits exactly into what they want to do. I really like Atlanta for next year in the East. Maybe not to win it all, but I like them to be a competitive team and, knock some teams off in the standing department.
I love it because they needed to upgrade at center. Onyeka's good, but if he's your six man, if he's your second big, you like him a whole lot more opposed to being your primary starter. The question is really with the Celtics, they have a history of knowing when to trade off players. And when they got Porzingis, they read the market so well because they traded Marcus Smart at a perfect time. No one expected them to move him a year after winning Depoy. They did. They turned him, and that was basically it. The Porzingis and a first round pick plus. And that other first round pick helped them get Drew. They did it with Robert Williams. They did it with Malcolm Brogdon. Unfortunately, they did it with Isaiah Thomas too. This team has a keen sense of knowing, all right, when we should hold a player and when we should trade him. So I do wonder if they have some intel that maybe the Hawks didn't, but for Atlanta, you're taking a flyer here. And I don't think there's a whole lot of risk. That being said, I do firmly agree. Top 4 seeds very likely next year, very possible. Better way to put it. Because they could add a 13th overall pick, lottery talent. You could add a pretty valuable player there to come off the bench. And then I'm not going to lie, I'm a big fan of Vic Krejci and Don Barlow and Mohamed Gay. I think their bench players are a little bit better than people might think. So I think they're a very well-rounded team. But
Yeah,
with all that being said,
yep.
time for draft.
Let's do it.
Time
Let's do
for
it.
mock draft. And by the time people are seeing this video, it's going to be a few hours before the actual kind of first overall picks announced. I don't think there's going to be any sort of a disagreement here who's going number one. But if you like to start off, I will give you the opportunity to take the first
I feel
overall.
like 1 and 2 we should just cancel out. Like we should start at 3 because
Okay.
1 and 2 we know it's going to be Cooper Flag, it's going to be Dylan Harper. Drew brought up an interesting point about 2 because I think 1 we can easily gloss over. I think 1 is more that conversation is more in October, September. How
Mhm.
does Dallas look like now with Cooper Flag? Kyrie's going to be back. Anthony Davis had a full offseason to be healthy. PJ Washington, Najee Marshall, the Twin Towers, and their Twin Towers, and Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford. Gafford just got paid.
Yeah.
Kyrie signed an extension. He's staying. Are they going to extend Jason Kidd? They didn't bring back a ton of his assistants, so we'll see how that goes. But I think that conversation is more predicated towards September, August. How do they look like in training camp stacked up with teams? With the Spurs, though, getting Dylan Harper means Fox time is ticking. I'm sorry. Like Fox time is ticking. They didn't
Mhm.
sign him to an extension yet, which I think they might. I'm leaning towards yes, but man, Dylan Harper's that good. I truly believe Dylan Harper's that. He was one of the best downhill prospects I've seen. It's 6'5", strong physical body, can go left, can go right, can finish at the rim with both hands. I think Dylan Harper is really a special type of player. And Spurs, I'm glad that they made number 2 damn near untouchable because I feel like Dylan Harper, Stephon Castle, Wemby, that is a beautiful, beautiful big 3 of young talent to build upon.
I agree. And Dylan Harper is a very bankable prospect to me in the NBA because of what he does at such a high level. It's getting to the rim, it's getting to the free throw line 6 times a game. And the biggest question with him, which I believe separates him from being a high end starter to a potential all star and a superstar level scorer, is his jump shooting. Because there were moments, there were glimpses, and the touch in the mid range game, I don't have any doubt about that. And I think his versatility inside the arc's what makes him the second overall pick and a tier above the rest of the class. But his 3-point shooting ability to make shots off pull ups, I think is going to be the differentiating factor for him being a potential kind of franchise pillar. And with Victor Wembanyama, I think it's kind of an ideal landing spot because of how much talent's here, but it also does give me a little bit of James Harden vibes early on in his timeline with the Thunder, where you have Russ, you have KD, and he's coming off the bench on a team that's kind of competing. I could see Harper early on being a 6 man on this team. And behind Castle and behind Fox, I do believe their skill sets clash a little bit. So that's where there's almost a theory that maybe the Spurs do kind of gauge the potential trades and make a win now move. But if I were them, I would not be willing to trade Dylan Harper. I think his potential is too high. With a third overall pick, Philadelphia.
You could go.
What do you do here?
I mean, I feel like we could do this together. I think if you look at VJ, like all the reports, it was Ace Bailey, but with Ace kind of telling them they don't want to take him, I don't know if Philly sits there and they take him. But then you look at VJ, and VJ's kind of the same size as Jeremy Kane and Tyrese Maxey. And that's a bit of a small, backcourt. But I think he's the best player on the board. And I think Philly right now, they're looking at Joel Embiid's health. They haven't gotten any major updates with that knee. You're looking at Paul George, and he's probably declining also with the nonstop nagging injuries from him. Outside of, Quentin Grimes, and of course the young talent I
Free
mentioned
agent.
in the backcourt. Who?
Grimes is a free agent. So is Yabusele.
Yeah, so I think they're probably going to give him his money. But they are free agents. This roster is just devoid of talent. I say VJ, but what do you think it should go with it? Because this is a tricky one.
I'll tell you what I think. The best prospect on the board is Trey Johnson. Obviously, for
Okay.
Philadelphia, not necessarily a fit. So I think it comes down to, like you said, Ace, VJ, or our sleeper here is Con Canoopel. Con is a player who has the highest floor. I believe with his size at the 2 and the 3, he would kind of slide in any team. But if I were Philly, the operating assumption, and this is what makes the job for Daryl Morey so tricky. It's his highest draft pick ever as a GM. Never selected this high. We don't know what he's going to do, but his track record of making picks is incredibly good. Last year, Jerry McCain, 2020, he turned the Markelle Fultz pick they got back into Tyrese Maxey. This is someone who I believe has a keen understanding of how to scout talent. Ace Bailey to me is the best fit right now. The issue is, of course, his camp doesn't want to go to Philadelphia. I think that's a mistake because he would slot in very perfectly and have Paul George as a mentor the next 2 years. The tricky part about Philly is what your timeline is. Joel Embiid won MVP 2 years ago. Since then, he has played 39 and 19 games. I don't trust Joel Embiid to play 60 plus games moving forward. And for that reason, I look at not only the immediate fit he slots into the lineup, he can start day one, but also the long-term potential of Tace Bailey. And I would argue that he is a better fit for this team than VJ. Like you said, Edgecombe plays bigger than 6'5". He's the most explosive athlete in this draft. Defensively, he's an incredible playmaker. I'm not keen on a starting backcourt of 6'2", 6'3", and then my small forward VJ 6'4". And that's not even to insinuate that he'll kind of hold his team back defensively, but I feel like you'd be a very small team. So that's where I believe VJ is the slightly better prospect than Ace, but I would end up going with Ace Bailey here.
So we think they still grab Ace Bailey regardless.
I think that would be the right decision.
I agree.
He is someone that didn't want to work out with the team. I wonder how much that'll impact him.
Listen, and I like the Canoopal pull because you got a 6'6", 6'7" guy who can kind of do a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you bring in, I believe QG will come back. That's another 6'5" guy. You got Paul George, 6'8", 6'9". So Con is about 6'6", 6'7". He can slide in. So I do think Daryl Morey, one of the things he does do is he knows talent. So, and if he still takes Ace Bailey, I wouldn't hate it. And what is Ace going to do? Sit out? I doubt it. So I'm with that.
Yeah. Once you get drafted, you can't do that. This isn't
just not smart at all.
Unprecedented move, all things considered. So Ace Bailey's a selection here at 3, and I like it a lot. With the 4th overall pick, Charlotte, I think this is easy. I would very comfortably go with the player who's going to be the top of the board. What do you think?
VJ Edgecombe. Let's do it.
He fits in just kind of perfectly with what they've lacked. You know, a couple of years ago, I wanted them to take Scoot Henderson over Brandon Miller. Kind of wanted them to get an explosive guard that could put pressure on the rim. Well, you're getting that in VJ and a defender who slots right between LaMelo and Brandon Miller.
I'm
now
with
pick
it.
5. And fun fact, not a fun fact. You were right. There was an echo because I didn't mute Fanspo. Now it's gone. Thank you, our listeners, for your patience. I am capable enough to understand what I was doing wrong. 5th overall pick, Utah. You and I spoke about this a little bit yesterday. Has your mind swayed from the player that you would go here? I think it's guard.
I think it's guard too. I think we're both on the same page that it's guard. It's weird though because all the reports have been Utah wants a guard, and if you look at Utah, I feel like Collier and Flip were their best players last year, just from the young guys' standpoint.
Non-marketing division.
Yes. Keontae George just has not been what you wanted. Cody Williams is awful. Taylor Hendricks, he tore his Achilles or ACL was one of those.
Like injury.
Yeah, he was out for the year. Walker Kessler is Walker Kessler. You know what you're going to get from him. Bryce Sensabaugh, he's been there for a couple of years. They just don't have any blue chip prospect. And I think with Collier right there at the 1, I am fine with going Trey Johnson here at the 2 guard spot. I think he is better than Keontae George. He's actually what you thought you were getting in Keontae George. And this dude is just a bucket with all the physical traits that you want. 6'6", long arms, you know, not the most explosive, but has a lot of wiggle to his game. I like Trey Johnson. I really like his game.
Agreed. I really think that situation's going to be very big for Trey. And I love the fit in Utah with a great coach and a scheme of philosophy that really it promotes space and it promotes ball movement. I believe Isaiah Collier is the point guard moving forward. You highlighted with Taylor Hendricks, dislocated ankle and a compound. It was a right fibula fracture. So a serious injury. He was someone I loved coming out the draft. But you're so loaded with him come back off injury next year. Bryce Sensabaugh, Lauri Markkanen, and you have 3 centers practically. You have Filipowski played so well last year in the second half. And I would keep Walker Kessler. It's a loaded front court. And the third player is alluding to is John Collins. I wouldn't be opposed to keeping him, but who knows what happens. He's been in the trade box perpetually. Yeah. So for Utah, it comes down to that shooting guard spot. And the way that you put it, I think was very eloquent. Keontae George was drafted to be that at the 16th overall pick, high expectations. He didn't quite fulfill them, of course. I think a change of scenery would be good, but I'm also expecting them to finally move on from Colin Sexton and Jordan Clarkson. I think this is the offseason that they do it. So the suitor, who knows, It's going to be a busy trade cycle, and that is going to allow Trey Johnson to start on day one. And I would be very excited to see him with Will Hardy and floor spacing.
Yeah, Keontae George, he went 16 because he fell. He came
Yep.
into college and he was like projected to go top 7, top 8,
Yep.
top 6.
Top
Went to
10.
Baylor, yeah, and he just he fell.
Yeah, he gained a lot of weight to play a slide up in position, and then he kind of wasn't playing as explosive, I remember. Now, at the 6th overall pick, to me, it became clear when the Wizards traded Jordan Poole, they're going with a guard. To me, the best player in the board, you could argue it's Con Canoopel. I would agree, but I would go with the point guard here in Jeremiah Fears. What says you?
Yeah, listen, I have mocked Fears in the top 7 all year.
Mhm.
Me and you were talking about this other day. This guy, I'm not going to say who the account was, but just pulling up these stupid numbers. I mean, these numbers are the stupidest things I've ever read in my life. Like, college is feel, man. You got to just understand feel, and I think Fears has that. Plus, he had a lot on his plate in Oklahoma. He really did. But I like Fears. I think has good guard size. I think, like you mentioned it, they traded Poole, which was shocking to me. I thought Poole was a player they could have kept, just on the
Mhm.
roster.
I agree.
But they traded Poole that kind of filled up another guard position. I don't think Bub is a 1. So I'm with you. Jeremiah Fears is the pick.
I agree with that. I also believe Bub Carrington's a 6-man, and that's why I wouldn't look at him as someone that prevents me from taking the guard here, who we talked about with Harper. He gets to the rim a lot, gets to the free throw line a lot. What I love about Fears is that he's the best ball handler in the class to me. He puts pressure on the rim, didn't finish as well. But if he can get the touch together, and then because he's a very young player, 28% from 3 was low this season, but he was also playing as a what should have been high school senior and reclassified to be one of the youngest players in college basketball this season. I put some value in that because in the SEC, he's still giving you 17, 4, and 4.
A lot of his plate.
And a lot on the plate of a player who was very raw coming out. So I like this pick a lot for
I
Washington.
wish Washington would have got 2. Like, I really do wish they would have got 2. I feel like this would have been the perfect Dylan Harper.
Oh,
Let's
yeah.
do it.
And he would stay on the East Coast. It's unfortunate because they've been trying to trade up, and I think they kind of knew it. They were out of luck when the ping pong balls bounced in the favor of the Spurs. Now,
Again.
the 7th, you hit it. Oh, yeah, it did again.
Again, like
Yeah,
it always
happened
happens with them.
Yeah, very fortunate that they were able to get another very high pick. Now, at the 7th overall selection, New Orleans, adding Jordan Poole. This franchise brings in a new GM after letting go of David Griffin, and you really don't have a whole lot of commitment to any of these players. So if you're in the shoes of the Pelicans' newest decision maker, what would be the selection for you?
Trey Murphy, Herb Jones. They'll give him another year, maybe 2. But I saw this report that's saying Atlanta is thinking about getting Herb Jones. They're definitely in the talks for that. That would be dope for Atlanta, like really,
Oh, yeah.
really dope.
Why not?
Zion's gonna stay for another year or 2. Yves Misi played really well for his rookie year. You got Poole. DeJounte Murray is going to be coming back soon. So I feel like your guard, it's still spotty. Jordan Hawkins is on the roster. Jose Alvarado, I think, is a solid backup.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's either Con Canoopel or Kaman Maluach. I think that's a sleeper too. I think they're not fully bought into Yves Misi at the 5. I think Kaman Maluach's potential is through the roof, much higher than Yves Misi. I
Really?
also think Derek Queen is another guy who maybe they want to try a different big coming in. You have Yves Misi, the defensive-minded guy, and then you want to start Derek Hub coming up the bench as that offensive hub guy. But I think for me, Pelicans need to play it safe. And I think Con Canoopel is a safe pick for them.
I agree with you. Canoopel and me is someone I have in the top 5 of my big board. And I kind of think when you look at this New Orleans team, the theme here is you have a lot of floor spacing. You have Herb Jones, Hawkins off the bench, and now you add in Con Canoopel, a connector. He reminds me a bit of Austin Reeves, but he's one of the strongest guards, I believe, one of the strongest perimeter players in the NBA when he steps in. A little bit like Desmond Bane, where his lack of explosiveness and above the rim finishing can be compensated by his ability to get to spots, play ahead of schedule, make the right reads. And yeah, he's going to be someone who struggles to finish at the rim. But the mid-range shooting is promising. The three-point shot was incredible, and he shot 90% at the foul line, 93%. The touch to me, the strength, and just the feel for the game gives him such a high floor that I would like this for the Pelicans. And at the same time, it doesn't hamstring you in any one way. Now, at the 8th overall pick, the Brooklyn Nets are a team that has 4 more selections. They didn't trade up. Who knows if they traded for a player or not? This is tricky because we might make 5 selections here for the Nets, knowing they're probably not going to do so tonight. To me, the selection would be, oh man, it would have to be Derek Queen or Colin Murray Boyles for me.
Okay. I think, like I said, this is interesting because we definitely, and I want Nets fans, before you guys get upset, we do firmly believe you guys will be trading up. So we're picking 5 picks for you guys right now, but we don't think we'll pick 5. So please don't get
Lack
upset.
of foresight.
Yeah. Lack of foresight indeed. Colin Murray Bowles is a good one. I'm not fond of him in Claxton.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
not.
right. You're
I'm
right.
not fond. I do like Derek Queen in Claxton.
Mm-hmm.
I like Casper's here. I don't think they have a guard. Outside of Cam Thomas, I'd say. I like Casper's at 8. I
You
do.
do.
I do.
So Casper's is tricky because he reminds me of Spencer Dinwiddie. I believe that he's a solid player. I could see him going late lottery. I do believe he's an overrated prospect. That being said, there's not anyone on the board who's really that much more better to me. And the Nets do have a need for guard. I'll let you make this decision, but I'm going to present a alternative perspective because
I'm listening.
Caspers has a lot of appeal. He's a bigger guard, very good passer, and he's also someone with a lot of shooting potential. Now, he had a wrist injury this year, or a forearm injury in his non-shooting hand, and after that, his shooting did start to fall off quite a bit. I look at his lack of separation, his very high turnover percentage, and his inability to create consistently as a point guard, and I look at him as more of a 2 in the NBA.
Hmm.
And I'm not sold on the three-point shooting. I look at him in slightly higher regard than Igor Denim, and I wouldn't have Igor going in the top 14 picks personally. At least I don't think so. We'll see in a few minutes. I believe that his role in the NBA is a 2, and you have one in Cam Thomas. So, given the top point guards are off the board, he made a great point before. I like Colin Murray Boyles because you're not laughing at me here. He gives me there's something to a net culture pillar who's an awesome defensive player that has a projectable 3-point shot. It's questionable. A
Okay.
left-handed player. I may or may not be hinting to a fan favorite in Rondae Hollis Jefferson, but I believe Colin Murray Boyles is the best defender in this class. His hands,
Agreed.
his processing. He is 6'7", and you do kind of question if he's a 4 or 5 in the next level. And much like Derek Queen, that hinges on his ability to grow as a shooter. I have more confidence and optimism in Queen doing so. And also, Queen to me may not be a center, a true anchor, but I believe that he has the ability to switch onto the 4 and even at times the 5. And I think he has a little bit more versatility and a higher motor than people will give him credit for in the defensive end. So my pick would be Derek Queen here.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think if you told me defensively Derek Queen is Karl Anthony Towns with a motor, I'd kind of get it. If you plug him next to a 5, I think Derek Queen will be fine. I think Claxton probably gets moved anyways.
Yeah.
So I'm with it. I think you convinced me on praying away from Casper's, but I think Derek Queen is the guy.
I'm with that. And I think a sleeper here would be Noah Senge. There's nothing like a toolsy international player like that has been
I
productive.
think this one's easy.
Pick 9. Oh, yeah. This was right on the stars.
We know where Toronto goes, man. We know where they're going with this.
I like this selection. Now, they are rumored to be giving Jakob Poeltl an extension.
They should.
It's weird. The Barnes, Barrett, Poeltl core is one that should be broken apart as soon as possible, in my opinion. That being said, I think Poeltl has grown on the offensive end, and for Toronto, they drafted him not too long ago. Masai Ujiri did, so I understand their loyalty to him. That being said, I would rather have Malo Walkfloy develop kind of in a bigger opportunity, so to speak, early on.
I agree too, but I also think he's extremely raw, and I think why not sit a year or two behind, Jakob Poeltl. Even Scotty Barnes, if I'm not mistaken, when he got into the league, he was blessed with Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, Fred, like a lot of veteranship, a lot of good players that kind of was like, yo, we have this chip on our shoulders because outside of OG, we weren't top 15, 20 picks, and even OG was hurt for that whole year prior to him getting drafted. So I think Malawach coming in, you can extend Jakob Poeltl because I think Jakob Poeltl is going to have value still regardless.
Yeah.
And you can learn right under him.
I agree with that. You mentioned before really quickly that you kind of buy into his ceiling more. And there's been a lot of big clips, and it reminds me of Mo Bamba a little bit, him knocking down shots and workouts and showing touch. What I like most about Kamal Malawach is his floor as a prospect.
Mhm.
I feel his rim protection, his offensive rebounding, his touch around the rim, it does give him real potential to maybe grow into and start taking shots and beyond the arc. And for that, he could grow into a player like Miles Turner with even more consistent rim protection. For that, I think that's tremendous value. But I'm really sold on the floor there, and that's why I think he's one of the safer prospects in this year's class. Pick 10, Phoenix. I feel like this is around the stars. The Rockets are going to trade this pick for one of the Sun stars that end up being Kevin Durant. Where would you go here? Would you go front court? Because as you can see on the fans belt, the needs are severe at every position except shooting guard Devin Booker and small forward with a combination of Beal and Royce O'Neal. They just got Jalen Green. I feel they need a point guard badly, but they also need some culture changers. They got one in Dylan Brooks, just versatile defensive players. I'm going to present to you a question. Do you go project Noah Senge, maybe call him Murray Burles, or do you go with a more ready-made NBA product and Carter Bryant? Or could it be Casper Jackionis? What do you think?
So I just dropped my mock. That was the one mock I did all year. Severely slack this year. Next year I'm gonna lock in super heavy. I had Carter Bryant going here at 10.
Mm-hmm.
I did. But my question is, what are they gonna do with Devin Booker? Is he gonna get traded? Because if he does get traded, I feel like draft day would be the day to do it. But I look at the situation, I look at the foundation of the league. Where can he get traded to? Do you dangle him to San Antonio for number 2? Like, yo, we have Devin Booker sitting here. I know you want to build this team with
Yeah,
Wemby.
I
You know,
love that idea.
I agree too.
Love that.
I think that's you need to call them. Do you look at Detroit like we like Jaden Ivey? You know, we like Jalen Duren. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
let's throw 2 firsts, 3 firsts, and let's call it a day, and we'll send you Devin Booker. There's not
Love that
many
too.
renty spots. Like,
That's
I
two
don't know
big
what
ones.
Phoenix. I don't know what Phoenix is doing. They plan to try Jalen Green and Devin Booker. I personally don't like that. I think Dylan Brooks can play the 3 or the 4. They
Mm-hmm.
really don't have a point guard, but I think they can grab that late.
Yeah.
I'm selling myself into CMB. I think this is a guy. If you want to start a defensive foundation,
Right.
it starts with him.
Yeah. As you can see in the front court, it's currently occupied by
Thanks.
39,000-year-old Thaddeus Young. Shout to that. Bol Mason Plumlee, and Nick Richards. The point guard position might be equally as disappointing as Monte Morris and Tyus Jones. I'm with that selection there, and I feel like you made a great point. Devin Booker grew up in Detroit, or he grew up in Michigan. He went to high school in Mississippi, Moss Point, but I don't expect Devin Booker to be a Sun in the future. I can't believe he has Stockholm syndrome. He's going to stay for this franchise for another 10 years, even though they're going to give him maybe 3 of those 10 years a competitive team. That's a perfect time for them to retool. And Drew said it the other day in a clip that'll soon be coming out. He thinks that Suns just might be next Oklahoma City Thunder. Make a big blockbuster move or two, stockpile assets, have a couple key building blocks, and all of a sudden you have a blossoming core from what was a kind of disappointing end to a competitive run. So I like Devin Booker trades a lot, and I think it's possible
Yeah,
tonight.
Devin Booker starts that for them. You can get a ton back for Devin
Yeah.
Booker. You just got to play it smart.
Yeah, the Spurs and Pistons both have a lot of young talent they can trade. Pickle, and by the way, if you give me Stephon Castle and Dylan Harper, I might say that's it. If I'm Phoenix, I'm going to try to get more first round picks.
You
But
get one more.
if the Spurs don't budge, I would take those 2 players for Devin Booker for as good of a player as he is right now, because I am that high on Dylan Harper, and Castle to me is a player who, alongside him in the backcourt, I think it's a fun fit.
I
So
like that shit. If you can, the Suns ain't that smart, but if you could try to get that, you're definitely like, yeah. Listen, you can go throw me a second. I'll take both of those players.
I would not be upset at all with that package. Pick 11,
Hear me
Portland.
out.
Let's hear it.
Hear me out. They just traded for Drew Holiday.
Yep.
They're looking for a win now player.
Mhm.
Clifford. Clifford's the guy.
Mhm.
If you want to go big man, Thomas Sorber. I don't know how to say his
Yeah,
last name.
Sorber. Yep.
But I think they go
First
win
name.
now player. I don't think Kasparis, Igor. I think this is win now player, a guy who can come in, was a high impact player in college, can help us win immediately. They have some time, and they have some, I want to say, minutes in the front court, because they do have Klingon, who's going to get more minutes. They do have Aiden. I don't think Rob will be on the roster at the end of the summer.
Yeah.
Jeremy Grant's still there, but then you have backup minutes at the 4 because I
Mhm.
think Jabari Walker, Chris Murray, blah, and
Yeah.
then Denny Advia plays the 4 here and there. But Cedric Howard is also another guy I'm looking
Yeah.
at.
Like that a lot.
Rasheer Fleming, I think
Mhm.
this is where Portland is looking at in that department.
I agree because they need spacing, they need shooting for a player that's above 6'3", and they trade a shooter in Simons. So I believe one of my strong takes for the draft is that Cedric Howard's going in the lottery.
Hmm.
Backed out playing at Duke after transferring. He missed a lot this season with the shoulder injury, but the upside is appealing when you have a 6'6" wing with great length, really smooth shooting. Not someone's most explosive athlete, but he still projects to be someone that in a phone booth can get his own shot up, create separation, and be in kind of the end of shot clocks and the end of possessions. Someone that can give you a little bit of creation as well. So I believe the floor is there. Is a more NBA ready product, and I think for Portland that'd be my selection. But I'm gonna go with your pick here. I think Nee Clifford's a very likely player I expect to go in the lottery. Now, pick 12, your former team that you dropped, the Chicago Bulls.
Oh,
What says you?
what says you? They re-signed Lonzo Ball. They have
Mhm.
Josh Giddey. They're gonna bring him back. Kobe White, think great player. Love Kobe White. Vucevic. Ah. Um, Mataz Buzelis showed a lot last year.
Did.
AO was playing well up until that shoulder injury kind of
Mhm.
hampered him. This is a team that I think they like what they have. They're not.
Mhm.
I don't think they're pushing the envelope here. I think they're going in a modest direction. I think they need a big though, and I think I'm here on Fleming or Sorber. Even if you want to go wing, I think Patrick Williams are looking for a trade that's failed. I think
Yeah. They
I
should
don't.
keep his values low.
Yeah, it is low, so they'll probably have to keep him.
Yeah.
$18 million is just not dangled.
Mhm.
I think Carter Bryant, Noah Asenju, I think those are
Yeah.
cool picks too. I think they're gonna go for one of those, but I think they're looking at big wing or athletic big.
Right. I wonder if they want athletic big, maybe they trade back in after this and get Asa Newell in the back end of the first round. The right selection to me feels like Carter Bryant is what they drafted Patrick Williams to become, and taking it here at the 12th overall pick, I think he'd be a better player. I'm high on Bryant, but I also look at the idea of Buzelis and Asenge and the size that they have 6'10, 6'9, and the athleticism. And my selection here would be Noah. Also, find it kind of interesting. He's leaving his team in the middle of the finals international to go to the draft tonight. Very very
Crazy.
polarizing thing in the NBA cycle right now, but I like his upside a ton. And for Chicago, I think it's a team that could bite the bullet. But
Yeah,
up to you.
that's actually
Would you
nuts.
Yeah, and they're up 2-1 last time I checked.
The draft can wait, brother. You're getting
Yeah,
drafted. That's crazy.
getting drafted either way.
Yes.
Um,
Uh,
so I like Sorber too. I really do believe
hey,
in your center.
if you could tell me with a straight face, which I believe, I like Carter Bryant. I want to say this. I like Carter Bryant. If you could tell me with a straight face, you believe in Chicago that they can develop Carter Bryant, that's the pick.
Ah, you know, yeah, don't have a straight face as you can tell, but I think he's
I like Carter.
a very high floor type of
Do we
prospect.
like him for Chicago? Because I like Carter Bryant. He's 19. Yeah, he's like 19 years old.
Mhm.
They
I would
don't
agree.
have any outside of Mataz Buzelis. This would be another young player they can bring in. You know
Yeah,
what? Let's do it.
let's do a Carter Bryant.
Carter
You want
Bryant.
to think about the raw player in a Senge, maybe higher potential?
I like Carter more.
Understandable. The shooting with him is just more translatable based off of his first year at Arizona. Now, pick 13, Atlanta. I think they're chomp on the bits to get Carter. That's why I was kind of thinking a little bit ahead there, but they don't have a backup guard per se. They have Karis LeVert, who's a free agent. Dyson Daniels is more of an off-ball guard, of course. I loved Kobe Buffkin coming out the draft in Michigan. I might have to admit I maybe overestimate him as a prospect. He has been hurt though, so this would be a good Kasper Jonas lane spot to me. If he's going to be an off-ball guard, he could toggle between right and the second unit. But at the same time, the Hawks have shown a type riv that like wings that can switch, have versatility, and they might take another upside play here to taking Zachary Reese-Shea last year at the first overall pick. So where would you go here? Guard or another versatile lane?
Would love to look at the board. Thank you. Hmm. You know what's funny about Atlanta? I had them taking
Yeah,
Sorber, but then
for
they
KP.
yeah, but then they traded for KP. Don't think Clint comes back. Jalen Johnson can play the 4. I do think Karis LeVert comes back. I do like him for this team.
Yeah,
The spark plug he can bring, like you mentioned. I was high on Kobe Buffin too. He hasn't been healthy, so the reps aren't there.
no.
Have we thought about Jace Richardson here?
I like Jace Richardson quite a bit. Don't know how much I like him besides Trey.
I don't think he starts.
This is a 6-man moving forward. I like that quite a bit. If the Magic didn't trade that 15th overall pick or that 16th overall pick, that would have been the perfect land spot, but it's no longer in their control. Personally, here, I would not go with Jace
Okay.
just because I feel like Casper's one of, if not the best landing spot,
Mhm.
the Hawks.
I'll let you drive this boat.
So if I'm driving this boat, Atlanta to me has so much on the wings already. Dyson, Zach, Jalen Johnson's a 4. I'm comfortable taking Casper's here.
He's
I
big
believe
too.
he's a good fit. He's a 6'6" guard. Defensively is another one of his biggest questions, but at the end of the day, I think he's going to play a lot without Trey, and he's going to hold them above water in those other minutes. So Casper's here at pick 13. If he's going the lottery, that's the one spot to me, to be quite honest with you.
I'm with that.
Pick 14, San Antonio. To me, I have made a couple of mocks. I basically hadn't taken the same player again and again and again. That was Thomas Sorber.
I'm with that because I don't think Sohan is a 5.
I agree. And Colin Murray-Boyles would be the ideal kind of dream pick if
Yep.
you guys went this far. There's also reports that the Thunder are trying to trade up. I believe it's because Chet Holmgren does have injury concerns. Isaiah Hartenstein's got 2 more years left in this deal. It's a possibility they can't and they won't bring back Hartenstein in a couple of years when they start to pay Chet. Potentially, we'll see how much they give him. That's the biggest question. And J-Dub. So I think they're looking to trade up on a leap the Spurs for one of these bigs that they're probably also targeting to pair alongside Wemby. Assuming here the Thunder don't trade up, I believe Sorber's not going to be available later, and I think that's the best player for the San Antonio's need.
Yeah, I agree. I think if OKC does trade up, Thomas is the guy they take. I think for San Antonio, Thomas is the guy they take. I think he's the best big on the board that we have right now. I think defensively he's there. He's able to get into the passing lanes. He's his processing is there, and he knows how to move his feet. So very good, agile big that can defend.
Yes, I think the Spurs need shooting, but they need a true center as well. So now with the 15th overall pick, the Thunder. I believe this is a good Jace Richardson situation. Off the bench, we kind of saw this year with Isaiah Joe and even a little bit of Aaron
We'll
Wiggins
trade him.
too. They're not, to me, irreplaceable bench players. You can upgrade off of them. And I would be looking to take best player available here if I'm the Thunder.
Actually, if I'm not mistaken, on my mock, I have. Hold on, because I think we might have hit a goal of mine. I have OKC taking Jace.
I really like it. They need, to me, they have the best perimeter creator in the NBA in Shea right now, but I believe you got more. And
Yeah, I think Jace can be a consistent 3-point threat. Like I don't think Isaiah Joe is that. I also think defensively he's up and down. Well, no, let me not say that. He's more down than up. But I also think Jace as a 3-level scorer, he can get to his spots. He can get to this rim. He can hit mid-range jump shots. And I think, like you mentioned it, the most important part is Chet, J-Dub, they're going to get their money soon. These guys are going to become replaceable, and that's with the ton of draft capital. You're going to have to replace these guys with semi-big contracts with these rookie deals to stay under the apron. So
well said. The Nets have 4 first-round picks to go. They don't have a guard. Before I submit this pick, I'm going to ask you if the Nets offered you picks 19, 27, and maybe actually scrap that. If the Nets offered you Cam Johnson and the 19th overall pick. No. If they offered you Cam Johnson and the last first-round pick for this selection, would you accept that trade? If you're San
I feel
Antonio?
like that puts you in a tough money situation.
Okay.
That's that would be the only thing. Like, yeah, because with this new CBA, everything is
Mm-hmm.
tricky. J-Dub, you're gonna have to pay him soon. Chet, you're gonna have to pay him soon. Like you mentioned, you don't even know how much you're gonna give Chet. Hardenstein's team options coming up soon. So Caruso, I think you pay. Lou Dort, you're gonna have to pay. You're gonna have to give him extension. And I feel like those two guys are kind of needed. So it puts you in a tricky situation money wise. So I would say no.
I agree. And also, the Nets are picking 4 more spots, and Who knows if they're that high on Jace? So pick 15. It's another steal for an Oklahoma City team that seems to do this every single year. Last year, it's Nikola Topic, who is yet to play yet in the NBA. Pick 16 to
This is
me,
easy.
Cedric Howard.
Yep, there we go.
And
This is
I think,
he screams Memphis.
yeah, the tools, the immediate shooting, and you traded your starting shooting guard for a Litany first round pick. So perfect spot. Pick 17, Minnesota. He hasn't went yet. I like Noah Senge, but what I really like is Rasheer Fleming. I feel like he's a clone of kind of like a mini version of Jaden McDaniels off the bench, and
Okay.
he'll play a very small role. You already have Rob Dillingham he was drafted to become that shot creator of the future. But if I'm Minnesota, you've got a lot of different young players developing. I think Rasheer Fleming comes in. He's an immediate high level 3-and-D forward to come off the bench, and I do believe it helps with Jaden McDaniels' foul issues. If you have someone for a contending team that can spell them in the fourth quarter.
Okay, you convinced me because at first I had them picking Walter Clayton Jr.
Yeah.
because of Nikhil Alexander's probably leaving.
Mhm.
But then you mentioned it with the front court, Rudy Gobert getting up there in age. There's not really a backup behind Julius Randle, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's really not. And then defensively, like you mentioned, Jaden does get in some foul trouble. I don't mind that. I don't mind Rasheer Fleming.
Yeah. It's really a good spot for both sides. Pick 18 next up is going to be the Wizards. They took Jeremiah Fears 12 selections earlier. They, to me, scream Noah Senge.
Ethan-
It's the best player on the
Okay,
board. They like this archetype, those French wings with tools, a little bit
two
raw.
French guys.
Yep, him and Bilal Coulibaly.
I'm with it.
Easy. Amazing value to me. I would have him maybe sneaking into the top 10 to the right team. Now, pick 19, the Brooklyn Nets, their second first round pick.
I
I
feel like
like Igor
Igor.
Denham.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
just about to say Igor fits right here.
And it's good value. I talked about Casper's, and I feel like Igor, slightly worse version because the shooting's a little bit less known per se, but he's also a bigger version of him. And I believe you can make a case he's the best passer in this class. So give him to Jordi Fernandez. I think it's a pretty damn good.
Yeah, I think he has better feel than Casper's. Not the same ball
Yeah.
handler, but his processing is really good. He just doesn't have the proper skills yet. This is Walter Clayton Jr.
Yeah. I don't think you and I have any disagreement here because it seems like he was maybe given a little bit of a promise. Uh, a couple months ago, they asked him if you have dinner with 3 people, 1 alive, 1 dead, and then 1 more. Eric Spoelstra was the first name that came out of his mouth. So I think it's a fun fit. The question is, if you're Miami, do you start him next to Tyler Hero moving forward? I wouldn't be opposed if they can mold him into a defensive piece the way they have other guards in the past.
Okay, I'm with that. Yeah, no, Walter fits right in. And
Yep.
you're bringing in Davion Mitchell.
Mhm.
You're bringing him back. I think that's dope. You have Andrew
Yeah.
Wiggins there, Bam's there, Tyler Hero's there. You're trying to figure out what you got from Jaime Hawkins, man. You're trying to figure out what you can get from them. But you saw a promise from Khalil Ware last
Mhm.
year. The two big lineup had some promise, had some potential. So now you need to fill out those guard positions. And I think Walter Clayton Jr. has the size, has the framework. He can come in and play right away.
Well said. And honestly, I think that he can mold them into. Wasn't too long ago. I guess it's over a decade ago now. They took Shabazz Napier out of UConn, a NCAA champion, a
Go
amazing college player. Didn't quite pan out, but that was a late first round pick.
two-time
And
champ. Put some
two-time
respect
champ.
in his name. He played with Kemba.
Played with Kemba, and I feel like there's a little bit of Walter Clayton there, the college pedigree, and I think Clayton can be a better pro. Pick 21, the Utah Jazz. They made their first pick, they went guard. Second pick, really bizarre here where they go because such a loaded team
I
with
don't
young
even
talent.
know. Like, I guess just BPA.
Best player available to me, Riv, I would say it would be no, it's a little bit too high.
I like Adu Thero here. I
I
do.
don't hate that
I
at all.
like him.
Tell me.
Strong wing, physical, can defend. I feel like they need that. I feel like they don't have that. I like him here.
I didn't watch much Thero. Can you tell me more about him as defensive player? I feel like that's kind of the selling point, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. The selling point is the defense, is the strong defensive tools. Pretty smart defender. He's able to move his feet well, can guard 2-3, can scale up guard 4s a little bit, strong, a little bit. I don't want to say a little bit athletic, but strong, athletic, can navigate screens well. And I think he's an energy guy. And I think that's kind of what you need in Utah, who I think we all agree lacks energy over there.
Mhm.
They don't have much.
Lethargic team, Riv.
Yeah,
Lethargic.
they don't have nothing. So I think Adu is a good player. I like him. He's one of my guys for sure. I would mock him to Utah. I don't like it. I don't like Utah, but I'd mock him there.
Fair enough. So Abdu Thero going to Utah, and I think that could be a very fun pick for a team that needs defense and versatile wing defenders. Pick 22, Nets. We're doing this a few more times here. Best player available to me. I might sell you on it being, if it is what I think it is, yeah. I believe the best player on the board to me, it might just be Will Riley out of Illinois. What didn't have the most efficient season, but 6'8" combo guard that showed shooting signs and a lot of growth over his freshman season. A little bit of a weird looking jump shot, no way around it, but I believe Riley is a moldable ball of clay for a young team that's shooting for younger, talented, developmental pieces. So I would go Will Riley here.
Okay, I'm with you because I don't think the Nets are going to pick 5. So I'm cool with that.
All right. Do you want to just trade these picks now to some team that needs them?
I don't even know. I don't even know how a trade would go.
We have to trade these picks. While we're going through them, we have to mock in our minds a team that might be willing or looking to trade back into the first round because there's going to be some. There's going to be some good prospects. So Will Riley's the pick here at 22.
Yep.
Okay. Pick 23, New Orleans. I like Danny Wolf.
As a backup. Who do we pick before? Please pull up the board.
Con Knuppel. Oh, this is my job. Con Knuppel is the overall pick.
Okay. Yeah. Ace is falling.
Yes.
Okay. Let's scroll down a little bit because I do think they need a big.
Mm-hmm. Ryan Kalkbrenner.
I like Johnny Broom or Danny Wolf is my vibe.
Okay.
I feel like a more experienced big would do justice, and I like Danny Wolf a lot. Are you a fan of this Joan Behringer guy?
I've heard a lot of good things, and I do believe that they could use another big to back up Vesmisi. But Danny Wolf, I don't hate it. So I'll let you decide with this election. This is the part of the draft where you're just shooting for a rotation player. Danny Wolf is a backup, floor spacer. You have Zion.
Perfect backup, honestly.
I like this pick decent bit. Pick 24, Oklahoma City. My selection would be the player you recently mentioned. It would be Ace Noel, but
okay.
I don't mind Juan, and I feel like they could go front court. So
yeah, I don't think if Asa falls right here, I think you have to take him.
I like that. It reminds me a little bit of Brandon Clark, just the energy. Maybe a little bit of a tweener, but
and taller.
I feel like on the glass, he is taller. Yeah, that's a good point. Apologize for the siren going on in the background in my town. I feel like Ace Noel, he's not going to be the floor spacer that Brandon Clark became, but still, I think he'd be a rotation player. Pick 25, the Orlando Magic.
He's there. He's right there. They need shooting. But here, they tried Jet Howard. They tried Caleb Houston. They tried Tristan De Silva. They've been trying. I'm not going to act like they don't try in the draft to bring in shooting. They really do try. But I think Liam McNeely is the perfect guy for what you want from a knockdown shooter. Did have a struggling year at UConn and projectively got worse and worse as the year went on, but I felt like they had him in a role where he shouldn't have been in.
Yeah, I agree. I did like the De Silva pick. My understanding of McNeely would fit perfect. He reminds me of Jake LaRavia, a decent shooter, decent off-ball player. He's going to be coming off the bench. I believe he's a better prospect than Caleb Houston, who they took in the second round.
Yep.
That's where I'm comfortable going. I don't think he's that much worse of a prospect than Jet Howard, even though Howard had a better freshman season.
He was just young.
Yes. Howard, to me, is a player. It'd be nice if he could ever crack the rotation, but there are so many questions. Defensively, he's a terrible rebounder, wasn't a connector. He was really a decent mid-range shooter, though. I think Orlando had high expectations. I also think McNeely can beat him out early on. So I think he can be a better pro than he was college player. So that'd be my spot. Pick 26.
Oh, my goodness.
They're going to keep coming back. They're not going anywhere.
At this point, we're assuming that they've traded this pick to let's say
get this over with. Sacramento has a very clear desire to draft the big. We're going to do an impromptu trade. NBA GM, Sacramento is willing to give the Nets Keegan Murray, no. Keon Ellis, no.
What about Utah giving up Colin Sexton for 2 of those picks?
Great idea. The issue is Sexton and Cam Thomas would really clash.
Oh, yeah, I keep forgetting about Cam Thomas. I really do keep
I
forgetting.
don't. I don't forget about him. I always remember him. He's my favorite player on the Nets.
It's not a
Also,
lot of
Malik
favorite.
Monk.
Okay.
So Malik Monk's on a great contract, and I feel the Kings are a team that might be looking to make a few trades. Malik Monk has good trade value to me. I don't think the 26th and the 27th pick together would be enough to get that deal done. Personally, if it's a better first round pick, I would agree. But the Nets could give them a prospect back who maybe they're not that high on. So, really briefly, I'm going to say pick 26.
Nolan, and they traded.
So, let's say in theory for Malik Monk, they get pick 26, pick 27, and Noah Clowney. I think Malik Monk may have even a little bit more trade value than two late first, but we're just going to say for the theory of this, so the Sacramento Kings are trading Malik Monk to the Brooklyn Nets for back-to-back late first round picks and Noah Clowney. I feel like this is not very likely. However, if the Nets are unable to get maybe a Jaylen Brown, they get themselves a guard who can play some point guard. I believe can also work the ball, and he does complement Cam Thomas better than, say, a Colin Sexton can. So for that, Sacramento is on the board, Riv. I will go, Dron, here. I'll go center. I would go front courts, but you like Nolan Traore. So
I
I don't
feel like
hate
they
it.
need a point guard.
They could, yeah. To me, I think Traore is kind of a backup, but even still, if you get a backup point guard to pick 26, you're fine with that if it's a rotation player. So,
And then you're just hoping he can get back to that level where he was a top 10 prospect 4 or 5 months ago, you know?
yep, definitely a prospect who's fallen probably more than anybody else, arguably, in this class.
And then this
Top
way we can go
five
center.
down. And here you go Kalkbrenner or you can go Behringer.
I think you go young.
Okay.
So Behringer.
All right. So I like this fit a lot. Get yourself kind of
Yeah,
a
he's 18.
younger
Jesus Christ.
developmental player. And I think the Kings could be very active tonight. Maybe they do move. I wouldn't say they move Keegan Murray, but I wouldn't be shocked. I could also see them trading Levine. So I think there's going to be a lot of activity from teams like them. Pick 28, the Boston Celtics.
Their big rotation right now is nuts.
Yeah, they don't have a whole lot because they just traded Porzingis, Cornet's a free agent, and Horford is also 40 years old and a free agent too.
I could see it go Ryan or Johnny Broom. I don't mind either or.
I don't hate Broom.
Yeah,
You can make a case. Would you argue that Broom's the best rebounder in this class, or is that a stretch?
I'd say he's
One of.
one of and arguably one of the best back to the basket players.
Okay. I don't know why. I get a little bit of Montrezl Harrell vibes from Broom. And
Less athletic, but I get it. Yes.
I can't put a pulse on it. He's bigger, quite a bit bigger, and a different player. Harrell's more a pick and roll play finisher, but I would not hate Broom. Kalkbrenner is also a player to me who I think in the front court can also fill a role very early on. So,
Yeah, they need a big.
yep.
Both of them are seniors, so both of them a little bit older players.
Yep. Two more names I like. Right now, offensively, one of the most productive players in the class, but two players I also like are Cam Jones and Ben Seraph. Seraph has the size. Jones has the productivity. He's a bigger guard, a 6'5".
I just don't know where they find the space for Cam. They got Peyton Pritchard, now they got Simons, Jaylen Brown, Derek White. That's
Yep.
kind of going to be their,
Fair.
backcourt type vibe.
Okay. So the pick here is
Oh, I was letting you run the ship, brother.
I'll go Ryan Kalkbrenner. Here
Okay.
at pick
I don't
28.
mind either.
Yep. I honestly think that Broom will be there later in the second round. I don't think a team takes him in the first personally. Pick 29, second to last selection. They get this from Cleveland. And they recently, the Suns took Colin Murray-Boyles.
I like Cam Jones right here.
I do too. I like
He's the perfect 6-man bucket getter, 6'5". I like it.
Yeah, they do have Jalen Green and Bradley Beal and Devin Booker, but there's also a case Booker traded. So you're taking a good player, and I feel like the best player on the board is the right move for the Suns.
Oh, I like it. Yes.
Okay. You can always undo the pick, but I'm not going to let that happen. Last pick of the first round for the Clippers. I believe it's got to be a NBA ready player.
I like
Noah Penda and I like Drake Powell. Those are two prospects.
I like Tyrese Proctor too. I really do.
Do you think that because you're for the Clippers, you're taking a younger player that can fill out a rotation spot early on?
Yes, because I think the Clippers are in competitive mode right now. They may not win it all, but with Kawhi, they extended him. They're gonna bring back James Harden, probably extend him.
Mhm.
Norman Powell, Zubac, Bogdanovic, like even the moves they made last year at the deadline. I think they're comfortable in the mindset of we may not win a championship,
Mhm.
but we want to be competitive. We just built a new arena and stuff. So I think win now mode player fits. I like the names we mentioned. I like Noah Penda here too. I think he
Yeah.
kind of is the bridge between both.
That's
Uh,
a player I would take.
yeah, I don't mind either of those players. I think him. I think Drake Powell comes in. He can be that. Because in the Clippers already, they drafted Kobe Brown last year,
Mhm.
and he doesn't play much. So
No.
Cam Christie doesn't play. He's a younger player.
Yeah.
So I don't with the Clippers. It's Noah. What was the board again? Noah Penda, Drake Powell, Kobe Bree. I like him here too.
Mm.
They
Yep.
don't have a backup
Talk
big,
about a
so
shooter. Talk about a shooter and Bree.
yeah,
Yeah.
Clippers don't have a backup big. So Johnny Broom I wouldn't mind it either, but they like their small ball lineup. So
They do.
I'm
They
thinking
make
more
it
wing. I'm thinking more wing heavy.
Wayne heavy. Penda can really fit that well, and I feel like given his productivity, one of the most productive players international in this class, that's someone who to me, 30th pick, it's a dart throw, and it'd be between him and Bell.
Let's go Penda.
Penda it is. And that will conclude our official 2025 NBA mock draft. A brief recap. If anything stood out in particular to you, I could say the biggest thing to me was that we should have had the Nets train up a little bit earlier. But I do think Malik Monk could be a player that's game traded either way. Other than that, anything that caught your attention?
I think we understand the Nets are going to trade. We just didn't do it. But we
Yeah.
we we definitely understand the Nets will be trading up. Um, any standouts? I do like Clifford in the lottery. I do think Carter Bryant goes to the Suns. I think they swing for potential
Mhm.
over BPA. But I do think Colin Murray Bulls is better. I think Utah is another team that makes a splash on the deadline. I mean, I
Mhm.
said deadline on draft night. I think they move one of those players you mentioned, a Colin Sexton. Not a Laurie, but definitely a John Collins who's on an expire. I think he's a good player that can go somewhere else. I think a team like Minnesota, look out. I think they're a team that also could be talking to get another draft pick, to get another win now player. I think a team like Miami needs to make another move. I think they need multiple first round picks. But other than that, no, I'm good.
My biggest takeaway is that the draft starts to me at pick 3, but if the Spurs want to get crazy, it could start at pick 2. Wherever the Sixers go at pick 3, that could completely swing the outcomes 3 different ways. And my other takeaway is that my favorite landing spot of all these players is Noah Senga at pick 18 to the Wizards. My
Okay.
second favorite, Cedric Coward to the Grizzlies, because I believe he's going to be a lottery pick tonight. My third favorite selection is gonna be Colin Murray Boyles the Suns. I like that a lot defensively. If they're gonna keep Devin Booker, I think it works. They're not gonna can kind of work. So those would be my 3 favorite picks. Before we close, I want to give you the opportunity to present some players because we took 30 of them. Or your favorite sleepers in the 2025 draft and some players that can really give a team a great return. We saw a couple of years ago the Pacers take Bennett Mathurin with the 6th overall pick.
Yep.
And
Yep.
early in the second round, they got a player from Gonzaga, Andrew Nemhard, and that ended up being a core part of the team that this year wants the NBA Finals. I want to know, what do you think is maybe the Nemhard of this class, or just a player who's going to rise quickly?
Yeah. So I made a tweet about this the other day. I definitely I want to use Kaman Malawatch because I do like him. I like
Mhm.
his I spoke about his ceiling, but I was speaking more about his floor because I think between him and Derek Queen, it's hard to find Derek Queens. You have Sengun, you have Sabonis, you have the Joker, but even then, I feel like he's more Sengun than Sabonis.
Mhm.
Come on, Malawatch, you can find those, and I think his floor is extremely safe. Clifford, I think Clifford is a strong Nick Clifford's a strong rebounder that can give you shooting, that likes the dirty work.
Mhm.
6'6", strong, physical, can play multiple ways. I think Jace Richardson is another guy, a 3-level scorer, really efficient, can get to his spots. Obviously, he's 6'1", 6'2". He's only probably like a buck 80. But I
Right.
think he's a really good player, and it's going to be interesting to see where he goes in this draft because I think people look at that build and I think they get a little bit turned off by it sometimes,
Mhm.
which is okay because I think that that type of size, it's really hard, and plus they take a lot of time. I look at a player like Tyrese Proctor, who is one of my guys who are slept on. Not my guys, but one of the guys who I think is slept on. Long arm defender, plays with heart, effort. He plays with IQ on the ball, off the ball. He is a beautiful passer. He can make some darts, like some plays around the floor. His confidence, his fearlessness as a playmaker is there. And I think it's come from his constant growth at Duke to consistently get better year in, year out. Now he's become a real threat as a shooter. I think that was always important. That's why he decided to leave this year, because that shooting is there. And I think he's going to be extremely important. I'm looking at a guy like Aaron Nesmith. I think Tyrese Proctor can fit that realm where he, can hit the three ball, be effective as a defender, kind of be that guy for a team that's wants to win. And a player like Drake Powell was another guy, just a versatile wing player from North Carolina, has some offensive development to his game, but the defensive potential is there. I think his catch and shoot, he showed a good signs of that this year. He's long. He has a high motor. He can guard multiple positions. I think his playmaking on defense is there. I really like him as a prospect too. And then, Sober, he's just his ability to just rebound the ball at a high rate, be at key spots defensively, win contested boards, get putbacks. He is like exactly what you want from a big man. So those are just a couple of my guys. And of course, Cedric Howard. I think he's risen the same way how Nolan has probably fallen the most out of a prospect. I think Cedric Howard has risen the most out of a prospect. And I think, him to Memphis, I think feels like the easiest fit in this NBA draft this year, because I think Cedric Howard kind of fits that, kind of that underdog mentality. And I think that's what Memphis is.
I agree with that. And it's not too high, so you're not putting high expectations on him. My favorite prospects, we talked about a lot in the first round. I want to talk about maybe two in the second. Drake Powell from UNC didn't have, given a little bit like Traore, he had high expectations coming in, disappointing the season, but still a very efficient player. I feel like in the NBA can carve out a role early on. Another player that definitely is overlooked because he's a specialist, but I believe that this specialist can become a rotation player. Kobe Brea from Kentucky.
Yep.
He's one of my favorite shooters in this draft class. Defensive questions, but at 6'6", I feel like he led the conference back-to-back years. First, it was at Dayton, shot 50% from three his fourth year. He was a fourth-year junior. Then he transfers to Kentucky, shoots 44% from three, leads the SEC. He only averaged 12 points per game, wasn't the most productive player. There's a chance that he falls maybe into the 50s. But I believe that his skill set can earn him a role in the rotation. For that, he's a player that I like his skill set a lot. And there's some good shooters in this class. He's one of my favorites. And after that, I think a third one that won in the first round, we talked about in the lottery actually, is Thomas Sorber. I believe that he's going to be a high-level kind of defensive piece. Offensively, he'll play roles kind of just like a high feel. I wouldn't even say Kevon Looney necessarily for the words. I saw Keandre from Hoop Intellect make that comparison, because Looney as a rebounder I felt was even better, but I think Sorber is going to be in the right spot, a really valuable player to some high-level teams. So those are my three guys: Drake Powell, Kobe Brea, and Thomas Sorber.
I like Kobe Brea a lot. Like, I really do, especially as a three-point shooter and a movement shooter. Love it.
Yeah, clean mechanics, and I think there's a lot of versatility there. But with all that being said, that's going to do it for me. If there's anything else like to add, feel free.
No, I think we've cracked everybody. Drake Powell, I think we both love. Sober, we both love. I would like to say my favorite selection was Jeremiah Fears to Washington. I am super high on his game. He's probably my favorite prospect in this class, because you mentioned it. The youth, the load he had to handle at Oklahoma, his ability to get to the rim. Obviously, he had the best finishing. His ability to get to his spots in the mid-range too, I thought was really impressive. The ball handling skills. I like Jeremiah Fears. I think he is the perfect point guard for Washington to lead them into the new age for them, because I think Washington, I think they've recovered fine after the Bradley Beal deal, and I think they have a lot of good things going for themselves.
Well said. With all that being said, that'll do it for episode 28 of Objectively Biased. Thank you so much for watching, listening, staying to the end. As always, till next time.